Hello, everyone. Here's a warm welcome to another edition of Gayatri Dialogues. And today we are thrilled to have Mitali Nikore. She is a founder of Nikore Associates. She is a pioneering economist with 12 years of experience in gender mainstreaming, development finance, policy advisory, and social entrepreneurship. And she has advised multilateral organizations like the ADB, UN Women, and World Bank. And Mitali was recently, felicitated with the India UK Achievers Honours, which celebrates the work of 75 young UK Indian students and alumni who've made indelible contributions to their profession and society. And Mitali is basically somebody who has worked not only in terms of gender mainstreaming, but really looking at every space and every pillar of law, policy, and governance from a gendered lens. So, Mitali, thank you so much for joining us. We're very pleased to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think you should also mention in my achievements that I am one of your very good friends for a very long time. It's truly at par with all of the other points that you mentioned in my bio.
No, no, this is no. It's. I mean, I'm no. But it is true that a lot of I think our work sort of kind of gets a bit informed a little bit from one another, and so I'm very glad to have this conversation with you because the whole purpose of Gayatri Dialogues is really to look at women's health, not just essentializing it from the reproductive and menstrual impetus like we normally do, and not only think in terms of clinical, the clinical outcomes, but really look at how women's health and well-being is more beyond the clinical, beyond the medical, and really defined by cultural objectives as well, right? So you have actually coming, one of those things that we talk about is we keep saying that at Gayatri, most of the people who are coming in as our users and our customers, they are the people who have dispensable income to prioritize their health. And we keep getting this feedback that even though they know that they have to focus on their health and they have to prioritize it, it still is something that people are, it's a discretionary expense and not an essential expense. So in that context, we always think about women at the workplace, that how are we making it easier, if at all, for women to work in a salaried situation. And because women are always working, so how do we get to a situation where more and more women are getting paid fairly for their work? So you have worked extensively to amplify the gaps that still exist for women at the workplace. And we have also been told at Gayatri that our users have that healthcare is a huge factor which affects women's career continuity, and these are disrupted by health challenges, or maternity, fertility, postpartum support, etc. What is the data saying about this, about women's health and with different women's health needs, and how that is having an impact on women participating in the workforce? And how can this be addressed realistically, to sort of ensure women's robust workforce participation?
So I think it's a very loaded question. So let's, break it down a little bit into a few parts. The first is, where do we stand when it comes to women's labor force participation? I think first we have to start from there. And India has amongst the lowest female labor force participation rates. And if we just zoom in, to India's urban female labor force participation rate, because obviously when we talk about Gayatri, we are currently still talking about a predominantly urban, client base.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that, the problem in India since the 1950s to now is that the urban female labor force participation rate has not risen. So
Mm.
we still have from the in the 1950s we started at a urban FLFPR of about 25%, which means that women aged 15 to 59 years, that is the
Mm.
working age, out of that only 25% were in the labor force.
Yeah.
Today that has come down to about 20%,
Mm.
in urban areas. And we are talking about data from 21, 22. So, over the last 5 or 6 decades, we've seen a continuous decline. And that decline, of course, is much more apparent when we talk about rural areas where it's nearly just halved. But
Yeah.
in urban areas also, there has not been a commensurate increase, or an increase in pretty much any of the categories. The only category amongst urban women that has shown an increase in female labor force participation, particularly in the last decade, is the graduate and above category. So the very highly educated, corporate sector is definitely seeing an increase of female labor force participation, but even over there, it's very low. It's still less than 30%. You know, so what I keep sort of telling people is just imagine that 70% of the women who are graduating are not joining the workforce, which is such a big skill loss. But now, when we come to the health aspects, that let's look at this cohort of women that is actually working, right? Especially the graduate and above, which makes up a large part of the urban female workforce on one side. But then you have the other side, which is the domestic workers, which is actually the second largest, representation of women in the workforce in urban areas.